Good morning, everybody. This is Steel Rose's podcast. This podcast was created for women by women to educate or elevate women's voices. I am excited to introduce everybody today to Stacey Ray. She is the founder and CEO of Sisterhood Travels, a trailblazing tour company dedicated to empowering women through curated, life-changing travel experiences. With a personal travel record of over 80 countries, Stacey's journey began alongside her late husband, Mike, whose adventurous spirit inspired her belief in the transformative power of travel. Following his passing, she channeled her grief into purpose, creating a safe, supportive space for women to explore the world and themselves. Today, Sisterhood Travels is more than a travel company. It's a vibrant community where women forge connections, build confidence, and rediscover joy through thoughtfully designed trips that celebrate independence, sisterhood, and self-discovery. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I love your podcast, by the way. And what a pleasure to be able to talk about whatever we talk about. So
basically,
yeah, exactly.
So I know I'm excited, and I told you right before recording why I'm excited to have you with me today.
Yes.
But I'd love for you to share your journey with the listeners, not just about like where you are now, but what were the pieces and parts of your life that brought you to Sisterhood Travels and turning something that maybe was just an idea into a whole community?
It's so funny that you asked me that today because I literally just wrote something about that. But in a nutshell, I was in healthcare for 30 years. And as we all know, healthcare is very stressful, but travel was always my outlet. I started traveling when I was, independently away from my parents when I was 19. And fast forward, my husband and I spent every dime of our discretionary funds, I'll say, on travel. And we just loved traveling the world. And I think the thing for us was that it was not only an adventure, but it was a way for us to learn about the world and other people and not rely on what we read or what we hear. And, some of our greatest moments were spent in cafes outside, meeting local people and getting to know them. And, we loved that. In 2017, my husband was diagnosed with lung cancer. And it was 11 months from diagnosis to death. And for the next 2 years, I was paralyzed. I was paralyzed mentally, physically, emotionally, to the point where my daughter would send me texts, have you eaten today? Have you taken a shower today? And I started thinking about what am I going to do? All my friends, if I wanted to travel, all my friends are working or they're with their grandchildren or don't have the money, the time, the interest, how that story goes.
Yeah.
And so I kept thinking there's got to be other women out there that are in my boat that have no one to travel with. And I had been in the travel industry and, I wasn't really the person who would book your honeymoon. I was more like doing groups and corporate groups and things like that as kind of like my side hustle. And then I decided, you know what? I'm going to start a group for women. I'm going to create a tour for women and see if it takes off. And so I started creating a tour to Iceland. So my husband and I went to Iceland long before it was cool. And we just started going back and back. And people say, why would you want to go to Iceland? We were like, you have no idea how amazing it is. It's incredible. Anyway, so I created the trip. I started this group on Facebook. And I decided I was going to call it Sisterhood Travels because it said exactly what I wanted it to say. I wanted a community where we can make friends. That was even almost more important to me than the travel itself, because so many women, especially over 50, they're isolated and they're lonely, and we live in a virtual world, and you get lost, and you can't make friends or we feel like we can't make friends who want to do the things that we want to do. So I started the private Facebook group, and I had about 250 people in the group who I swear were like my friends and family, 90% of them. And I had great interest in my Iceland trip. And then COVID.
I was going to say COVID.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. Whenever I have people on and I'm like, oh, tell me your story. Like, COVID isn't everybody's stories. It's like, and then COVID.
It's funny because, we used to, when I was growing up, it would be BC and AD, like before Christ,
But now it's like before COVID, after COVID.
Exactly. And everything. You're right. Everyone I talk to, same thing. So I actually ended up going back to the hospital. I came out of retirement, went back to the hospital, and worked in the ICU for 19 months with the COVID patients. And,
wow.
Yeah, that was, that's a whole nother story of, But, and this is going to be a really odd thing that I'm going to say to you. As horrific as it was, and as much PTSD as all of us now have, apparently, all of that death started to bring me back to life. And I don't know how to explain that except to say that I realized I don't have to be one of those people. And I can't keep staying paralyzed. And so I swore that if we were going to get past this, I was more committed than ever to Sisterhood Travels. And so I started to see the light in the summer of 21, and I started to put the company back together, but even with a stronger mission, because of all the isolation that everyone had been through, that this was going to be about community. It was going to be about women being there and showing up for other women. Travel was the vehicle to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started. We kicked off, and shockingly, and at this point I was doing everything myself, creating the trips, designing the trips, taking all the reservations, working with the suppliers.
Oh, yeah, because at the beginning you're a one-person show.
Absolutely. And I was stunned at the response, and we grew exponentially overnight. And to this day, we have never advertised. We have grown organically. From that 250 women, we now have almost 45,000 women in that private Facebook group that are very engaged, highly engaged. Because we all look at those numbers when you have these, types of things.
Of course.
Like, I see a lot of other type groups where they'll say, oh, we have 150,000 members, but in reality, engagement's nothing. And ours are not bots. These are real women. We vet them all and, to the best of our ability. So anyway, to make a long story short, the women just were amazing, Jenny. Amazing. Caring, kind, compassionate, supportive women. Each of us with a story. I mean, we all have a life story, right? But it started to occur to me as I met these women and listened to these women and traveled with them. When you're over 50, you start to feel pretty invisible.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's getting a lot of buzz these days, but I've been saying it for a long time because there's this expectation that we kind of shrink and disappear, and we don't have much to bring to the table. I mean, I'm
I was
sure,
just going to say that because the
and
perception is, well, you're done. You're not going to have any
yeah,
more kids.
right,
It's not like you're going to get married. Like, you don't have any
yeah,
of those milestones. You're done.
exactly. And we're so used to taking care of everybody else. We
Mm-hmm.
take care of our families, our children, our spouses, our jobs, our community.
Mm-hmm.
Who's always last on the list?
Oh,
We are. And I
I'm a
can,
problem.
yeah, you're always last on the list
Ugh.
because that's what we are ingrained to do. That's the societal expectation. And we start listening to all those voices in our heads, and we start feeling guilty
Mhm.
for doing anything for ourselves. And when I started hearing the stories of unimaginable loss and tragedy and challenges that so many of our women were going through, I realized, wait a minute, this is transformational, because
Yeah.
these women were coming back and they would say to me, Stacey, you changed my life. And I would say, oh, no, 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 no. No, I have not changed your life. Sisterhood Travels has not changed your life. What we've done is given you a vehicle. You're the one who found the grit and the courage and the resilience to step out of whatever it is you're in and take this leap. I mean, Jenny, we have women who have literally never flown before or flown alone that will somehow find the courage to get on a plane in LA and fly to Europe to meet 24 women they've never met
I've never
before.
met. You
It's
know,
magic.
it's I think the key element, and you mentioned it, and I'm taking notes as you talk. Um, it's that bringing together for the community, because even as you said, like, it as an adult woman, like, it is hard, especially, all right, right now my kids are small. A
Right,
lot of my friends are mothers of my kids' friends, so it makes it
right,
easy for me to make those connections.
right,
But if that wasn't there, as I get older, I'm not engaging with anyone anymore. Like, to be perfectly honest, like, my social circle is my family, really,
right,
at this point. Like, that's my social
right.
circle. And then obviously, like, the mom friends. Once you get older, like, how are you making friends? And then you do feel alone. You do feel isolated, because
Absolutely.
what else is there? Once no one needs you anymore, if you have never stepped up and said, I want to have this little thing for myself that I'm going to cultivate and take care of, well, if you don't have that, then you are actually going to become very lost. And now that I'm saying this out loud, that loss of the community and people around you, compounded with, if you have lost your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
compounded with menopause,
Mm-hmm.
will basically push a lot of women over the edge, and
Mm-hmm.
they are depressed. And they're
Absolutely.
feeling totally lost. So to have, I could see that. I could see me doing something like that, and I told you, like, a few minutes before, I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
going to pass you along to my aunt,
Yeah.
and have, and even like my mother and my other aunts, like, they all they like to travel. After
Right.
my parents separated, my mom made it like she was not, before she got married, she traveled, and then she got married, had kids, and,
Yeah.
life. And then after my parents separated, she had always said she wanted to go to Alaska on a cruise. I'm going, it's happening. She made
Good
it
for
happen. She made it
her.
happen. And this is
Yeah.
somebody who was like, stay at home mom. Like, just had a small little job on the side, but her focus was her family.
Right.
And she was able to do that. And then since then, she's gone to Ireland a couple of times. Like, doing that for yourself, the travel is exciting, and getting exposed to another culture is
Yes.
exciting,
Yeah.
but there is something else there that, like, internally, I don't even know
Yes.
how to say it, like, not a cleansing, but it's like an awakening almost.
Yeah. And it's so I'll tell you what I've seen is how many women are building life skills they never knew they had. Right. So I'm going to give you a perfect example. My husband always took care of all the what we always laughed and called the man things, but
Yeah.
I've never taken my car to be serviced in my life.
I hate doing that.
Well, it took me over 2 years to even get the courage to have someone else take it, but
Yeah.
because I was afraid to ask for the help and
Yeah.
this and that. But 2 years ago, now my husband had gone 7 years, so it took me 5 years to one day, because what I would do is I would drive past these places and I'd be like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then I would drive past because I'd be so nervous. And then 2 years ago, one day I said, that is enough. And I drove in. It was almost like I jerked the car. Had it done. They were asking me questions. I was like, they were like, well, which wiper blades do you want? And which oil do you want? I just looked at them. I go, okay, give me the best one, I guess. I don't know. Bottom line is, that moment of that first, of doing that for myself, was so huge. And that's what we're seeing with these women. So when they go on a trip, now this is a big deal for them. They've never done it before. They come back and they start doing things like I did.
Yeah.
Because they're learning, I can.
Yeah.
I can. And they're learning, I'm not done yet. My life isn't over. It can be anything I want. And all of a sudden, those outside voices start to slowly go away and they dissipate. And, what we find, and this is interesting. So I love when you're talking about like your aunt and your mom and, passing us along and how appreciative I am. But you can't believe how many kids, and I think a lot of times it's well-meaning, believe me, they kind of lead the parents to not do this.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they'd be like, I don't know, do you think you should? They worry about, because I think they see their parents as a more vulnerable person. A, because they're older, and B, with the loss of, say, a spouse, they feel like they're very protective of the mom. Like I said, very well-meaning, okay? And I don't fault anybody. And please, if I could make one PSA, everyone should be vetting anybody that they go with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's like they're afraid for the parents, that they'll flop or, this won't work out and they'll be unhappy. But what we find when the moms or grandmothers or the women say, wait a minute, I'm doing this for me, they are so transformed by the experience. I always say, travel does not just teach you about other people. Travel teaches you who you are.
Yeah.
Because you start to learn internally, not just what you're capable of, because, navigating travel in today's world is
complex.
Chore.
Yeah.
And you have to be flexible. You have to have, adaptability. But it's not just about the other people. It's like you learn, do I have biases that I didn't realize were there? Do I have expectations that everywhere I go should be Americanized? And all those things. So it's great. But the most magical part is watching these women, literally so many of them, from the airport to the first hotel, they have new besties already that they were in the car with. We have a very strong policy, no mean girl syndrome. We have a code of conduct. And we're not going to let you or anybody else ruin someone else's vacation with toxic negativity or...
Ooh, that's good. You mentioned it earlier, like when you're talking about like the group and the community that has come together. And just now, even saying like what you said, it's very interesting because I had done like a virtual community course the one time, and everybody who came into that course really came into it with like a positive vibe. And we all have bad days, like that happens, but everyone who came into that course, and there was thousands of women in this course that I got to engage with, I actually came away from that course with some good friends. That's awesome. I still like engage with virtually. Like they're not in the same state, and maybe it's not, we don't talk every day, but it's still like, because when you create a space that's safe for women, and I'm not the importance of physical safety is huge. Like that. So that's
Right.
one thing I wanted to also point out about your group itself.
Yeah.
Beyond the community and beyond like the safe mental space, you are creating a physical safe space. Because I remember
Yes.
when I was very young, before I got married, everybody was, partnering off. Everyone's getting married. I was the only one left.
Yeah.
The only one
Poor
left.
Jenny.
Poor
Yeah.
Jenny. And I remember saying to my mom, like, this isn't like I'm working, like I want to travel, but
Yeah.
who am I traveling with? When I'm going to go with a bunch of married couples? Like,
Right.
I don't want to do that.
Right.
And
Right.
at the time, there was nothing like this.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents very much were like, no, we don't want you to travel by yourself. Like a woman alone traveling is actually quite dangerous. And so they really like kind of put that, fear
That fear
in
in
me.
you.
So,
Yeah.
so I held off and I was like, all right, I guess, I won't get to do anything.
Right.
So this creating a physical safe space even is like quite a big deal. And then beyond that, it's like it is like an awakening and an opening for a woman to really step up and say like, well, this is mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to own this. And you're right, that will spur and splinter off into, well, I did this. Like, well, then that means I'm strong enough to handle this. And one thing I also do want to highlight too, a lot of what I read about, because I didn't start the podcast until I was about 38, 37, 38. And a lot of what I read about women who have these great successes later in life, they didn't start it until they were in their 40s, like late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's the moment of, I almost feel like, I've said it a couple times, I feel like I've gotten a second shot at life here. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's.
I love that for you.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain, and I know you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's like because in your 20s you're figuring stuff out. You don't know who you are. You're going all different directions.
Although you love to think you know.
You think, oh boy, did I think.
Yeah, right.
What did I think?
No, I remember.
I remember very much thinking I knew, and now I'm like, no, you did not. In your 30s, you're developing your career. You're, if you're getting married, if you're having kids, like, but there's all these bigger, other things outside of you. But then that's also what pulls from you, right? Because that's what you said. Like, we're always here for everybody else. I am here for my family. I'm here to take care of them, and I am. I love it. I don't mind it,
of course.
But it does end up making me last. When I started the podcast, my cousin originally was one of the founders, and it became, she couldn't do it anymore because of her schedule. This became something that was like a escape for me. And I explained to you, when we hopped on, I was so excited to record with you this morning because I had to take a month off for my daytime job. And it was draining. I love my daytime job. I love who I work with. I love what I do, but it's very draining. Yeah. And this is something, and I was excited. I logged in, I got all my, recording tools up, and I was like, whew, this is mine. I own
Jenny
this.
Gets to be Jenny today.
Yes. And I get to own this thing, and this thing that has turned into something really great. And I'm listening to you talk about your travel community here, and I'm like, you said it also earlier, like everybody has a story. Every single woman that you could talk to any woman.
Yes.
And if you drill down to it a little bit, just below the surface level, there's a story. And it's so inspiring.
I was just watching, I'm not a big, video person I'm becoming more interested in watching all these clips. But anyway, excuse me. I just saw a clip last night of someone was interviewing Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. Mm-hmm. And the question was, how important are women's friendships? And Lily Tomlin was like, they're just so important. Mm-hmm. And then Jane Fonda started to talk about why. And what she said was, which is what you just said, women go deep.
Yeah.
We want to know what's really going on with you. And not from a voyeuristic perspective, nosiness most of the time. I mean, there are nosy people, but it was so profound when she said that. And I said, that's exactly what it is. And then she went on to say, men don't do that. And I said, well, I don't know what men do. That's what I'm thinking in my head
Yeah, I
because
have no idea.
so I don't know if
Can't
they
speak to
think they're
that.
deep or not. That's on. But it's true because what I notice is, especially when I do travel, with our sisters, which is what we call them. They're not just our travelers or our clients; they're our sisters. Um, their willingness to share, maybe not every detail, but their
Right.
willingness to share is so generous because that's the only way that we can stop feeling like I'm the only one in the world this has ever happened to.
Yeah.
Nobody can understand what I'm going through, and that's, because you are younger and building your life. I want to say something because we have a lot of outliers that travel with us that are, in their 30s, or we have 18-year-olds that come with a mom or a grandma.
Yeah.
But if I could say one thing to younger women, it would be start now
Yeah.
putting yourself first. Have you ever heard of a me moon?
No.
Okay.
Oh, like baby moon, honeymoon, a me moon.
That's
Oh, keep
right.
going.
Me moon. I don't care if it's one day, 1 week, 1 month. Every woman on this planet deserves to have a me moon.
Mhm.
It takes work to allow yourself what we consider a privilege to have that time. But what good are you or any of us to the people that rely on us if we haven't recharged, rejuvenated, stepped away, treated ourselves to something? A day at the spa could be your me moon if that's what
Right.
you want. I used to laugh and ask my husband, you mind if I just go to the hotel around the corner? I'm just going to go there by myself and read a book for 2 days. And
Yeah.
we'd laugh, but he really wouldn't have cared. But a me moon is so critical for our survival. And young moms are
Oh,
especially prone to being
yeah.
last on the list because, we love our children and
Yeah.
we're supposed to put our children first. But you know what? You can put your children first when you take a me moon because they need a mentally, emotionally, and physically
Yes.
well mom,
That's what
right?
I was just going to say. You can't, and I learned this, unfortunately, the very hard way, just like
Mm-hmm.
many other women out there. And my first, starting in 2016 when my son was born. Yeah, 2016. It took me a minute.
Yeah, to think about that. Yeah.
Starting in 2016 when my son was born through COVID, through 2021,
Yeah.
I did not prioritize myself for about 4 years or 5 years. And I remember I got to a point my health was really not good. And it wasn't anything serious, but I was
Right.
in very bad physical shape.
Mm-hmm.
And I was only sleeping, I was burning the candle at all the ends. There was no
Right.
candle left at that point.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just a little pile of ashes because my job, I was doing I feel guilty that I'm a mom. So
Right.
I'm going to work like enough for 3 people.
Right.
And so I would work until like 3 a.m. every single night.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, my babies, my son was born in 2016. The twin girls were born in 2017. And so I was consistent. I was up every 2 hours, like with them. So on top of my work schedule and then the child schedule, I made sure they got their shots. I made sure they had their appointments. I made sure they were
Mm-hmm.
good and healthy and well loved. But in the interim, I was like falling apart.
Yeah.
I was falling apart mentally, physically. And my husband would always say to me, like, you have to go work out. Like, you got to go do something. Like,
Right.
you have to do something because I was just really in a bad physical state. And what started to happen to me was I was getting really depressed and I didn't want to leave the house anymore. And, I had gotten severely overweight because of having the kids, and I never lost it. And I just kept gaining. And it was a very difficult time for me because I just was not prioritizing myself. And so I went to the doctor because it's interesting because in the moment it didn't register like, you're doing this to yourself. Like
Right,
it
right.
didn't
You're like, what's
register.
wrong with me? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I was looking for some outside like cause, and it just didn't click. Like, Jenny, you were doing this. And I went to the doctor and I was like, I'm having a hard time losing weight, and my joints hurt, and this is bothering me, and this is and I was like kind of just listing everything out, and the doctor sat there and just talked with me, and she was like, well, what else? What's this? And then when I got to my sleep, and I was like, well, I'm only getting about 2 hours of sleep a night, but it's spread out throughout the whole night. It's not like 2 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And she said, she was like, Jen, you're killing yourself. Like, she's like, if you continue off on this path, you're taking years off your life at the end. So I was pissed when she said it, because to a mom,
Yes.
your kids are little, you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like,
Right. Yeah.
what am I supposed to do? Now, in hindsight, though, I had a strong support system that would have happily jumped in and helped me. And they actually tried to jump in and help me. But Jenny, being who I was, refused help. And they would come to help me, and I still would, like, say no, and I didn't want it. And I'd be like, you can come and hang out, but I'm still doing. They're like, why don't you rest? Why don't you go do something? It's okay.
Yeah.
I could, Stacey, when I say, like, I just couldn't do it. And now, like, flash forward all these years, I do ask for help.
Bravo.
But it's hard.
Oh, it's so hard.
Very hard. And it's also hard to acknowledge, and like what you just said. Now, women who are listening to this are probably like, well, I could never go on it. I can't go on traveling around.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that for myself. I can't walk away.
Yeah.
I can't leave. I can't do this. What about this? What about that? The reality is, though, like, that's really us putting those barriers in the way.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Now, to what you just said a few minutes ago, first of all, I want to ask a question, because I don't think we ever asked this question, ever.
Do it.
And this is not to say you didn't have a supportive husband or circle or whatever. Have you ever heard a man say, oh my God, I have to burn the candle at both ends. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm not getting any sleep. I have to do the kids, the house. You've never heard a man say that, right? It's women. We do it to ourselves.
I got to tell you, you kind of just blew my mind a little bit. I talk about this quite a bit, but you actually just blew my mind a little bit, because now that I think about it, as soon as you said it, I'm like,
yeah,
I don't think I have ever heard someone say that.
No, you never hear of men who are doing that. Now, I'm not saying there's not great fathers. Of course. So please, people, don't write into Jenny and say that woman was a bad hater, because I'm not. But I will say this. In my whole life, I have never heard a man talk about fatherhood or parenthood in the way that moms do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so is that because of the societal expectation and the traditional roles that, we're supposed to fill? And are we exacerbating that ourselves because we're never enough? Right?
Right.
And this guilt that we feel, like, the age-old debate, can you really have it all? Can you have a job? Can you be a parent? I just want to smack myself every time I hear people say that. Yeah. Of course you can have whatever you want. And working doesn't make you a bad parent.
Right.
Not even sort of. What makes you a bad parent goes far beyond having a job and trying to, or a career, because you're allowed to fulfill yourself. And you know what? Your children aren't going to have any respect for you if they see a doormat as their mom, right? So
you're also setting the stage for them to see, like, oh, this is how you should be. Because our kids, it's not just what you say to them; it's what they
actions.
Say.
Absolutely,
I think it's actually more so the action. Now, I will say this though: my kids very much are like, we don't want to have a job like yours.
Yeah, because they're like,
because they know they see the ugly side too. They also will see mommy. I will say this: I'm very, like, open with them, because I don't want them to look at me and be like, oh, she was perfect, and I have to hit
I have
this
to be her.
standard. I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
to be
yeah,
mom. And
yeah,
especially my daughters, I want them to know, I'm like, there are other ways. And I
yeah,
said to them, like, this past month was very difficult for me
yeah,
for work
yeah.
because I was so overworked.
Hmm.
And I said to them a couple times, I'm like, this isn't for everybody. This is what
Right,
I chose because I chose this path, but you don't have to choose this path. You don't have to go
right,
corporate. You can do whatever you want. Like
right.
it's really wide open for you. I want to touch on something. I want to go back to what you said about, like, you don't really ever hear a man say, like, burning the
Yeah,
candle at both ends.
yeah, yeah.
Something that was really helpful years later, and I want to reinstate it now because, or re-say it now because, for young moms that have just had kids,
Right.
after you have a child, like after you physically like birth a kid, your brain pattern will shift definitively. Now, this
Absolutely.
isn't, it's
Yeah.
not like BS. It's a legitimate,
No,
if
it's
you
it's
scan your
scientific.
brain,
Yeah.
it's scientific, your brain changes.
Right.
So after you have a baby, you are going to notice that you have mentally made a shift. Something is different in you now because that is a natural instinct for you to be able to care for your kid.
Yeah.
When my kids were little, I used to be able to hear them before they even made a noise, like in the
Right.
middle of the night. I could smell when they were sick and I was down the
Right.
hall. Like I just knew.
Yeah.
Men don't go through a biological change
No, they
when
do not.
a baby is born. So what's going to piss you off the most after you have a kid is you're going to change everything about yourself and everything you do, and your husband will not.
Right.
Now,
Right.
that doesn't mean he's not going to help you. He's going to help you.
Yeah.
And he's going to get up. My husband got up with the kids. He took off work to help me with the kids because I was doing
Yeah.
my career too. Like, it doesn't mean you're not going to have help, but it just means that all of a sudden for you, your priority has wholly shifted.
Correct.
But for your husband, it'll still be, well, I'm going to go work out though, and I'm still going to do this, and I'm still going to do
Yeah.
this. Yeah, there's a baby in
And
the
they're
house.
still going to go and do the guy things.
They're still going to do. They're
They
going to
have
feed
no
themselves.
trouble
They're going to
taking
make
time
sure
for
that they
themselves.
leave the house. They're going to make sure that
That's
they,
right.
I mean, and I talk to a lot of the women that I know, and they're like, yeah, he like goes and works out, and he does this and he does that,
Yep.
and
Yep.
but then he's like mad at me that like dinner's not, and I'm like,
Right.
but it's all of us.
Yeah, I know. It's
Listen,
universal.
and I like
Absolutely.
to say this too, just because that's what's happening in your marriage or your husband doesn't mean he's a bad guy. Like, don't look at
Not at
don't
all.
look at these social media and everyone's perfect and their husbands are so helpful. Why aren't you like this?
Oh
Actually,
my
no
God.
husbands are. So, like, we're all
Listen,
like this.
I had the love story to end all love stories. Okay, I had a wonderful husband, but let me be clear: he was not a saint. He was
Right.
not perfect.
No.
He, as hard as he made me laugh, he also made me like, want to kill
Yes.
him sometimes.
That's normal.
That's exactly right. And if you think what you see on social media is real,
Ugh.
whoa.
Don't even get me, and it's not even just
Yeah.
that. So that's the other thing you talked about with your travel group that I want to highlight. I want to like pull it back there because you said like women come in and you're protective of the environment. We don't do
Yes.
toxic female voices here. Like, we're here to support each other.
That's
and
right.
have just open dialogue without judgment. That's really what this is. We're not judging each other. We're just coming
Correct.
together. Part of the problem that I noticed too, and I'm very particular about who I like talk with on a regular basis because of this.
Right.
Women get very judgmental of each other for really no reason at all. And it's like, oh, you wait, hold on. My favorite one that I got when my kids were younger was when they were like, some of the moms were like, oh, you don't pack your kids' lunches? And I was like,
yeah,
well, no,
yeah.
I don't. I work full time, so this is my.
And they're called Lunchables for a
Yeah,
reason.
I'm like, look, I'm like, they might not be getting a home cooked meal every lunch, but you know what? Like, I have to take help where I can get it. It's like, oh, well, you don't like, I don't wash my own laundry anymore. Like, I send it out. Like, I have to be able to make adjustments. And this is what I say this quite a bit. You need to live your life to the best of what is going to suit you and your family. And this is across the board for women in general.
Absolutely.
It should not. I'm trying to hit this standard because society has said this, or my family has said this, or my friends have said, like, this is how you have to be. Because the reality of it is, you need to just do what you think is best.
And that is, so here's the thing. You're saying this to me as a younger woman, and you're recognizing these things, right? And you're more aware, and you're taking steps, and hopefully you're reaching many, 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 many women who are hearing your voice. But what about all the women who get to 60 and 70 and we've not
never
had that?
I know.
So I'm going to guess that in your day job, you work across intergenerational lines.
Mm-hmm.
My company is, our employees are intergenerational. And I have had to have conversations with both sides to say, wait a minute, we're not useless because I don't understand how to make this work on Teams. Okay. I'm not stupid because I don't understand how to, make a folder in my email,
Right.
that's the kind of stuff. Because there's this, let's face it, let me tell you what women in my generation have gone through. Black and white TVs.
Yeah.
Color TVs.
I saw that. I was at the tail end of that. I was there.
With remote controls.
Yep.
And record albums, CDs, DVDs,
Blu-ray DVDs, yeah, like
what do you call answering machines?
Oh yeah, beepers,
now cell phones, and the list goes on and on and on. Desktop computers that were 900 pounds, so tablets. Don't tell me we can't learn, okay? Right. Do not tell me that, because nothing makes me more irate. Now, is it a little more difficult because I didn't go to school and learn on that? I learned how to type on a manual typewriter. Click, 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 click.
Which also makes you more careful because it was a manual typewriter and you couldn't just delete. So Correct. You had to get it right that first time.
Exactly. So, it's really interesting. I did a recording the other day with a group called Cyber Seniors, and two teenagers who had to do community service decided, based on something going on in their family, they were going to teach older people how to use computers and technology. Well, now, fast forward, I'm not sure, maybe 14, 15 years. It's a huge nonprofit in Canada and the U.S. Seniors, or, I guess people over 55 can go and online, or they can call and they get free help. But it's all the mentors are young, high school, college, etc. And they did a documentary, and what they found was that the compassion and understanding on both sides was so profound that became the real benefit of what they were doing, aside from the technological help. But that's the same thing with us, with Sisterhood Travels, is that, yes, we're traveling, but look at all the...
everything else. It's literally everything else. It's not just the travel. It's
right, the travel is like
coming with it.
The perk,
that's like the rest of it. Yeah, the rest of it is so much more about the connection, and that is, we talked about social media a few times, and that's also something. There's a huge deficit today with people being disconnected with themselves. And I see it, even at home. Like I am on a computer all day, so my preference at night is not to have a screen in front of my face. Like, as soon as I'm done with work.
So hard to disconnect and disengage, though, right?
I'll tell you, especially if I don't have when it's work stuff and it's important, I have to stick with it. But my preference is I don't have personal social media. I don't even do the podcast social media anymore. Like, I handed that off because that really that's not my jam. And I'm like, I would prefer to just be like in the moment. And I always see it when I'm out with the kids. Like, yes, I'll take a couple videos and I'll take pictures, whatever. but then I actively in my brain, I'm like, all right, put the phone down and
Yeah.
see this. And there's so many people now that are so, everybody
Right.
wants to have a big following because everyone wants to make money off of it. And I get it. Believe me, I get it. But if you're just constantly on your phone and looking at social media and trying to post to social media,
Yeah.
then you're not actually living your life. You're not in
Yeah.
the moment anymore.
No.
You've gone past it.
No.
So it's that disconnection, I think, is causing a lot of problems for people, and they don't realize it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is, I will tell you that. So I told you I just got back from Havana.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a perfect example. So, you know, I'm connected to the computer, I feel like 24/7 only because of business. I don't
That's
do our
different.
social
Yeah.
media
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But in Havana, the Wi-Fi is extremely unreliable. You may have it, you may not. And I found on my trip that the only place that would have it was in my hotel. Well, we were only in our hotel while we were sleeping, basically.
Right.
Because, you know, we're there on a visa in support of the Cuban people. So from 8 in the morning till midnight, that's what we were doing. I can't tell you how freeing it was to go, sorry, I can't even look at the phone. You know, I mean, we would take pictures and stuff. One of the joys of traveling with women in my age group is everyone's not trying to build their following.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Okay, so we take pictures and stuff like that, but many times you'll just see us all standing there without the camera and,
just,
you know, much to the chagrin of my marketing staff, because they're like, we need pictures, we need video. But you know what? I'm here to actually see what I'm seeing and learn what I'm learning. If I'm so focused on taking pictures, I've missed it all.
You've missed it. You're going to miss it.
And I want to be present, you know, so it was really kind of fun to experience that for the first time of like, I just don't have anything. There's no cell service for me.
I like
There's
that. We're going on our first family vacation this year. We're going to go, and it's not just us, it's my 5, and then plus my stepchildren and my stepdaughter, her fiance, and my grandkids.
So, wonderful.
Yeah. And then we have like extended people going. So there's a group of, I don't know, it's probably about 20 people all going. We're taking a cruise in June, and we're going to be going down to the Bahamas, and just
fun.
We've never traveled as a family because when the kids were little, it was just too much.
It's cumbersome.
It was just very cumbersome. So my husband and I are, and he and I even, like, we've never actually done a big trip together. So we're so excited. And Stacey, I have to tell you, what we're most excited about is putting everything to the side and just having fun.
That is what life is supposed to be, Jenny.
I can't even. And my stepdaughter, she sent me a post the one time, and she goes, the post basically said, it was basically saying, like, you know, talking about the mental load of motherhood. And it said, like, you know, it's not that I want a break from my kids. I want a break from all the other stuff. And I said to her, I'm like, this is going to be the first time, and my son just turned 9. So this will be the first time in 9 years that I'm not responsible for cooking and cleaning and doing laundry and doing all those things. And I said to the kids, I'm like, do you realize that mom can just be fun mom this whole time?
Right.
They are so excited because I'm like, we can never do that. I can never there's always going to be something. Like, oh, what time is it? Lunch is, you know, this and that. This will be a first time for that. And yes, like, we're going to take pictures and all that stuff. But I'm like, there's no Wi-Fi on the ship. We can just like hang out.
This is just like so fun. I'm so excited for you, for your whole family. It's going to be you're going to feel so rejuvenated and recharged. You really are.
I can't even, Stacey. Every time, this whole month, that was like really hard for me. The whole time I was like, you're going on vacation.
Yeah.
You can take a break.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's awesome. And, you know, it's funny because we travel to all 7 continents, actually. You know, we do trips everywhere. And it's so interesting to me how many women will literally have never gone on a trip
Yeah.
and then pick this obscure off the beaten track location or destination for their first trip. And I'm really impressed by that because, we all love to go, what's on your bucket list? Italy, Ireland,
Well,
Scotland,
the usual,
the
whatever
usual
places.
stuff,
Yeah.
right? But every once in a while, I'll get something like the ancient Silk Road, which I'm actually releasing a trip like that this week. But I'll get something like that, and I'll be like,
That's cool.
"Whoa, my person," like.
I would love an off the beaten travel, like kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, we're actually doing a lot more of those. And by the way, I would love for you to come on a trip with us.
oh my
We would
God,
have so much fun. But
it would be amazing.
yeah. But aside from that, we were talking about the code of conduct and the negative toxicity and things like that. And you made a comment that I wanted to circle back to, and it's true. We all have bad days.
Mm-hmm.
What we do in prepping our women is we say, show someone the grace that you would want.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, is today the anniversary of the death of their child or their husband?
Yeah.
Or, it could be anything. Or today my sciatica is so severe and I'm trying, but I'm just not my normal friendly self.
Right.
Grace. But there's a difference between that and just coming on the trip and all you do is complain. Now, I have learned, and my team has learned, and God bless my team. We couldn't do anything without them. But if you are already starting to misbehave and act negatively in the group or toward my staff in your communications, and you're nasty or you're chronic whiner and complainer, if that's how you're acting before we leave, what are we going to expect from you when you're on the trip?
Right, exactly. It'll be only worse.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So we like to remind people that, and I feel strongly about this, I have a moral, ethical obligation, possibly in some cases legal, to ensure your emotional and mental and physical well-being.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let someone else hurt you, say mean things to you. I have removed people from trips, Jenny.
I was going to ask. I was actually going to ask about that.
It's rare, but it has happened.
I think that says a lot about you and what your goal is here. Because what I've heard and read through, entrepreneurship and the other women I'm connected to that are entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs, you do have to stay focused on like the message. Like your core message here was like, you actually really wanted to build a community. You went through a trauma, you lost your husband. And from that was born this concept of, I want to create a space for women. I can't be the only one who feels alone and invisible.
Right.
And from that little concept, that little seedling, you've grown this beautiful tree here that's branching out across the world. And you're going to protect that base root line that said, like, but this is a safe space.
Yes.
So it's not like, oh, we're traveling together and I don't really care about the message or the community or anything like that. Like,
right.
No,
but which is what you do find in a lot of, other groups, especially, like there's so many groups where solo women could travel. You could sign on for groups with different tour operators,
right.
But they're mixed and they're primarily couples.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I've traveled on it with my husband in the past. And there's always they allow 4 single spots. They're usually 4 single women. Those 4 single women may or may not talk to each other, but the couples, they don't interact with the singles at all. They're all coupled up.
Yeah.
And I got to say, and again, don't write Jenny and say I'm a man hater. I am not. But the dynamic is so different.
Yeah.
When men are on the trip.
Yeah.
Because the woman is not doing what she wants to do and being
Yeah.
her authentic self, because it's all about what's making the husband happy or the guy happy. And that's one of the beautiful things about traveling with a woman only group, is that it's all about you.
Yeah, it's about the authentic self. And
Exactly.
I want to say here too, because I only have a few minutes left. So I
Yeah.
actually want to make this point, because what you said is it's not man hating, because I don't
Right.
hate on men on the show. Like, I talk about
Yeah.
how much I love my husband all the time. Like, I
Yeah,
really do.
exactly.
He's fantastic. He actually helped me become a better person, like, hands down.
Yeah.
No, I don't man
Yeah.
hate at all. But what you're getting at is that for me as a person, I did this meditation, and I like to talk about this because it actually helps you see the difference. So when you start the meditation, you're saying I am and your full name. So you're saying I am Jenny Benitez, and you're focusing on that for a few minutes. And then after you focus on who is Jenny Benitez for a few minutes, then you drop your last name. You say I am Jenny. The first time that I did that meditation and was focusing on, well, I'm Jenny Benitez, and then I'm Jenny, and then you go to I am. When I got to the I am Jenny part, this is going to sound a little negative, but there was almost like a lifting of weight off of me. Because
Not negative at all.
when I just said I am Jenny, it became this blossoming thing that came out of my chest. And I was like, oh, there you are. Okay, you're still there.
I love that, because I've always said, one of the boy, in this conversation we've been all over the place, but I've loved it. The one of the things that I said, that I'm still learning as a widow, who am I?
Yeah.
It took me years to think about certain things, like, do I like that restaurant because I actually like that restaurant?
Right.
Or do I like
was
it because Mike and I were always going there?
Yeah.
Or because he liked it? Or, do I like that couch because that was Mike's style of couch? It's all those things. So I love that meditation.
It was a huge one.
Yeah.
It was really impactful, because you don't realize, and it's all that weight of everything else that I do. Yeah. And then once I lifted that, and I will say, the more that I've allowed myself to just be I am Jenny, I've actually become a better wife. I've become a better mother. Like, everything about me has shifted since I started to do that, because I'm like, okay, you are the person, you're holding, like, my husband always says, I'm the ship. Like, he might be steering, but I'm the ship. And he always says to me, he's like, if the ship falls apart, that's why he's like, you need to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
He's like, we're all going down.
We're sinking. Yeah.
But it's important, like, that, having that authentic, like, you are who you are. You have to lean into that, because that will make your whole life different.
And we forget. We forget who we are. Yeah.
You lose it.
Yeah.
You really do lose it over time. And if you don't, I didn't rediscover myself until I was 37 years old. Like, and if
Imagine
I didn't do it
being
at that
65.
Point, that's what I'm saying. Like, if I never did it, I don't even know where I would be right now. I don't know where our family would be. Like, I have if I hadn't taken this journey with the podcast, I don't know where I don't know.
First of all, I absolutely love that for you, and for all the women that you're helping. I mean, these conversations have to be so enlightening for you, but also for your listeners. And I love that for you.
I do hope so. That's always, and I will say this, and transparently, the listeners can hear me say this too, but because I usually say this in the pre-cons, but the reason I share so much on these podcasts, and the reason why I will share so much personally of what I've been through. I mean, some of the podcast episodes, I'm crying on them, because I want women to see this. I want them to see, this is real. Like, this is reality. And it's okay. It's okay to have feeling, and it's okay to be who you are. And you just have to lean into it. And I want to be a pillar here. In the same way you created the safe travel space, this community that you've really started to craft, that's what the podcast is meant to do. And that's when as soon as you said early on, I went through this and I realized I knew I wasn't the only one, and I wanted to start this community. I was like, oh my God, Stacey and I
Yeah.
just became best friends because we both want
Yes.
the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
So,
For
Stacey,
sure.
for the listeners who are interested,
Hmm.
or if they want to just check you out and see what the vibe is, even if they just want to see the online community, how are they getting in touch with you?
So they can get in touch with us certainly by our website, which is sisterhoodtravels.com, travels with an S. And if they go to Facebook, where our big private community is, it is Sisterhood Travels, travel for women by women, which a little bit like
That's
your podcast.
interesting.
Yeah, for women
Maybe
by
I should
women.
go away
Yeah,
with you and podcast the whole time. I could probably
I
interview
think so.
everybody on the trip.
Oh my God, I would love
Oh
that
my
so
God.
much. Yeah, I would love that so much. And they would love it too, because
That
boy, do they
would be
have
something.
stories.
That'd be,
Yeah,
that would
yeah,
be
for
the
sure.
craziest thing.
I know.
Stacey, thank you so much you basically lit up my day here. And,
Oh, thank you.
thank you,
You've lit up
honestly.
mine too.
I
It's an
really appreciate you coming
honor.
on. Really.
And I have loved this conversation. It was very fun. And what a great way to start the day, too.
Right?
For me. Yeah, exactly.
Well, listeners, thank you for hanging out with us today. Check out Stacey's stuff. I'm going to link everything in the description. So if you're interested, you can click one click away. And connect with her online, because this is big. Like, this is a big deal. And even if you can't go right now on a trip, start engaging. At some point in the future, maybe you can. So start taking a look at it now. We will catch you on the next one, and I hope everyone takes care. Thank you.